That's right.
Yep.
All right. Hey, everybody. Always Booking Comedy. It's Monday night. We've had a couple off weeks. Thanks for we had some tape delay, pre-recorded episodes. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate. Good on you. And we got Dan Bublitz in the house. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Awesome. I think joining us in Loveland, Colorado. Does that sound right?
Yeah, Loveland, Colorado. That is where I'm based now.
Colorado. Originally out of South Dakota, the SD. I'll be there this weekend. Aberdeen. Get your tickets. -15 degrees. It will rock.
I'll be there as well, but not on your show.
Okay. In Aberdeen or in South Dakota?
South Dakota. I'll probably be over in Watertown, not very far from Aberdeen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Maybe
Getting ready for SnoJam.
Okay, SnoJam Comedy Festival, everybody. We'd push it real hard, but this is the final year. Is that right?
That is true. Yeah.
How many years? What year is it?
This is year 8.
Wow. Year 8.
8
Incredible.
years.
What do you learn as a festival organizer in 8 years?
Oh man, I've learned a lot because this wasn't my first festival. I had produced another one. I had a few years experience when I started this one. What I've learned is it takes a team to build a good festival. That's one thing you need.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah, and you have to have really good organization skills. Having a good team, like I said, being able to be personable because you need to be able to talk to, get sponsors and venues and, other people involved, trying to get media and press for the festival. Like all those things are important to help make it successful. So you got to be very personable when you're talking to other people.
Nice. Would you say that's a strong suit of yours, a skill set that you've always had?
I think to some extent, yeah. I feel like I'm pretty likable, pretty personable. I can, talk to people. I mean, depends on the situation. I'm awkward. I think all of us as comedians, we're all kind of awkward. So you put me in a social situation with other comedians that I don't know, and I'm going to be the weird guy standing in the corner. But but if I need to get something done, I have no problem.
Nice. Awesome. How did what would you say was did it grow over time? And what was like an inflection point for the growth of the festival?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's hard to say because from year to year, our venues have changed. We've used bigger ones, we've used smaller ones. I mean, 98% of the shows we've sold out. I mean, the only year that we really didn't do well was during the pandemic, but also we did a virtual festival. And so, obviously that was a little smaller, but people still tuned in and we still raised a little bit of money for a charity partner. So that was cool. But yeah, we've definitely seen growth, especially with submissions when it comes to submissions. When we first started, I don't remember how many we had, but it grew to where we're getting like 250 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. When you consider we only have 30 spots available, that's a lot of submissions because that's like 12% of that we're accepting.
Yeah. High bar to get in. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any crazy stories behind the scenes?
Oh, as far as, I wouldn't say so. Nothing too crazy. I mean, we've had some good times. You were there the year that Dennis Regan came and he just like hung out for the whole week and hung out with everybody.
He was incredible.
That was cool. He went to lunch with everybody, came to the little after parties and all kinds of different things, which was really cool.
That was super fun. You had incredible headliners that year. Mary Mack as well.
Yep.
Killer lineup.
Yeah, awesome. We've been very fortunate. I mean, even last year we had a decent, we had Jackie Cation last year, Miss Shannon Paul, which is a comedian out of the cities. Both were fantastic. So we've been very fortunate in that year. I think one of the funnest years too, we had Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall. He did a sketch workshop. And then the people who did his workshop got to do improv and perform their sketches on his show.
Whoa.
Too. So they got to like work with him, which I thought that was really cool. That was a really cool experience for them.
That's awesome. All right, you've been doing comedy a long time. Let's cut off some boilerplate questions here real quick.
Perfect.
When did you get
Yeah.
started? Why did you get started? That kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, right. I've been doing stand up over 13 years. I'm going into my 14th year. I started in 2010 and I started after I got divorced. That's really the short answer. Something I always wanted to do, but I never did because I got married very young. And then I found myself at a point in life where I felt like I had wasted a lot of time in life. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore, and made the decision to, at least go try an open mic. So, and here
where
I
was it?
am.
In South Dakota?
Yeah, in South Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah. So my history in comedy, I mean, I did start in South Dakota, but I didn't stay there very long. So I always say my informative years of comedy are San Diego.
Yeah. Yeah, you hooked me
where I
up with some
spent.
good places to eat. What's that burger place called? Hody's or Hode?
Oh yeah, Hody's. Yeah,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Hodads. I think it's Hody's.
Something.
Yeah, Hody's. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think it's Hody's. Hody's is what the fort used to be called.
Yeah, I think it's
Fort Lauderdale.
Hodads.
Hodads
Yeah.
Burgers. If you're in San Diego, everybody check them out. Delicious.
Yeah, they got, I think, 2 locations.
Yeah,
too.
incredible. Okay, San Diego, cool. San Diego's a crazy scene. They got like 3 or 4 major comedy clubs within
More
like
now.
blocks of each other.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, within blocks, but altogether, yeah, they have. There's let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 or 6 clubs there now, and then that doesn't even include all your independent shows. So
That's so crazy. Do those clubs do well?
or theaters. I mean, they must be doing well enough that they're still open. I mean, it is surprising when you look at how many different clubs there are, especially, downtown. I think in the
Yeah.
Gas Lamp, there's 3. There's a Laugh Factory, there's the American Comedy Company, and there's the Madhouse, all within walking distance from each other. And then on the outskirts, in La Jolla, you have the Comedy Store. And then out in Claremont, there's the Mic Drop Comedy Club, which used to be the Comedy Palace. And then up in North County, they've got the Grand Comedy Club.
Good Lord. And they got 3 regions of Don't Tells out there. There's just like so much comedy.
Oh, yeah. Don't
Are
Tells.
the clubs like, is it any different than a city that has like one club? Like, are they less crowded? Are the shows less fun? Like,
at least the shows that I had been to, I mean, outside of like obviously your open mics, and even some of the open mics, depending on the venue, would fill up pretty good.
Wow.
But I mean, most of the shows had pretty good crowds. It just depended on, the weekend, I suppose. Because then in addition to that, you have theater shows too that take place.
Right.
Because there's a couple different couple theaters that do comedy there. So there's a lot of entertainment always.
What's bigger, San Diego or Denver in terms of population?
Oh man, I don't know off the top of my head, but I imagine with San Diego, the thing that they have over Denver, and granted, Denver, there are people who come to visit, but San Diego's a big tourist town too. So like you've got those people, you've got your regular people that live in San Diego County, but you also have all these people always visiting because they have, SeaWorld's there. Yeah. You got the zoo, and
the weather's
all the beaches, the weather. That's
San Diego's about twice as big as Denver. So yeah, for some reason I thought San Diego was smaller. Every time I go there, it just seems like such a small place. But it must bleed out outside of the tourist areas.
It really can. You've probably just stayed in like the western part of the city where, because you can get out to East County and, some of the edge of San Diego where you're more inland.
Yeah. All right. Any great road stories in 13 years?
Oh man, I got good or bad. I mean,
bad is more fun in my opinion.
Obviously, yeah. I got one fun story that actually happened in San Diego. Well, coming back to San Diego, I got the opportunity. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Laughs on Fox when that was out?
I never saw it, but I'm well aware of its history and I've heard of it.
Okay, yeah, you've at least heard of it. Well, I had the opportunity. I got to film a set for it.
Oh, cool.
Unfortunately, just never got released. But that's besides the point. It was a great show. Had a good set. It was fun. My buddy Zoltan, who Yeah,
He's big now.
Yeah, he's big now. He was also on the show, and we carpooled. I picked him up, and then we went there, did the show, and then we're coming back. And at the time, I had this little Volvo, and we were just so pumped from the night. I wasn't paying attention. I was just like flying down the interstate there, the freeway. And Zoltan's like, "How fast are you going, dude?" And I look down, and I'm going almost 100 miles an hour. I'm like, "Oh man, I better slow down." And as I go to slow down, my temperature gauge in my car just, I'm like, "Oh no, this ain't good." So then I, pull over and get off the freeway, off to the side on the medium or whatever, and my car just, all the lights come on, check engine light, all the dash lights come on. My car's dead. So we got to call. So we got to call a tow truck. And at the time, I didn't have roadside service. I mean, I worked I had a regular job, but it didn't pay very well. Like I was poor, pretty much. The broke comedian. So Zoltan had AAA, so he calls this AAA. Gets the car towed at the time he worked at this mechanic shop. So we had it towed there because that's also where his car was.
Okay. And
so we get it towed there, get it situated so that we can go back to San Diego. But then I didn't even have cash to like tip the guy either. So Zoltan had to do that too. I did get Zoltan back though, just so we're clear.
All right, cool.
But so yeah,
the taping was in Los Angeles.
It was at Pechanga Casino and Resort, which is in Temecula. So it's like Riverside County. So it's like north of it's basically halfway between LA and San Diego.
Okay. All right. And so you just got the car brought back to San. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So the lesson that I learned on that one is make sure you have roadside.
Yeah. You want to hear a quick funny story about that? I ran out of gas recently. Very embarrassing. Middle of nowhere, Kansas. And like a month or two ago, called AAA, waiting on AAA. I have another like 4 hours to drive, and I have a gig in like 4.5 hours. So like I'm stressed at this point. And I can see the gas station. It's like 2 miles away. I can see it. And so I called AAA. Half an hour later, they call me back and they say, "Sorry, we can't help you." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, our nearest person is 89 miles away. We can't help you. You can call state police. We can give you the number." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I have the goal. Like I just got the bill. I think it's like $140 a year, $114 a year. It's a lot. It's not cheap. And they just totally left me high and dry. I called the state trooper. State trooper came. It was kind of neat. Came. He took cash from me. He drove without me, left me on the side of the road, came back with a little bag with a receipt and the change in it. And he had filled up his own gas tank, and he filled up my tank with a gallon or two. And then I drove the rest of the way to the gas station. He was the nicest guy in the world. And
wow, that's amazing.
But AAA can
that's wild. So my roadside service is through my insurance company, so I don't actually have AAA. But the lesson I learned is have roadside assistance, and believe me, it's come in because I had transmission go out in a car one time. That was another one where same thing with you, where I had a show to get to, and I had to wait for them. But what I did is I made it to the show on time. That was the thing. And how I did that is my friend who I was going to stay with, and he was featuring for me. He had to drive 2 hours in the opposite way that the show was, pick me up, and then we drove back to the show, but we made it there on time.
Man.
And then I just had to leave my car at a random shop. And so
knock on wood, I haven't missed a gig yet.
So
hopefully that streak continues. All right, let's talk about festival submission tapes. That was the
right.
We got together. I think people will be interested in this. I run a festival, Vail Comedy Festival. It's every Memorial Day weekend. VailComedyFestival.com, everybody. November 1st to February 14th, submission tape. We take submissions. We have a big committee, people all over the country review the tapes. Your tape's viewed at least twice. It goes into this big scoring algorithm, etc. How does your review process work?
It's similar. We have a screening committee. They do, watch the videos. So it's going to be watched 5 times because there's 5 people on the screening committee. They go through, score it, and then that score is combined with all the other screeners for a total score. And then that's kind of how we determine.
Got it. Is it a single metric? Like just,
No, it's so we go, we look at when we're screening our videos, we look at your stage presence, which is basically, how confident one is on stage there. And then we look at overall humor, crowd reaction. That's kind of one, how's the crowd reacting to you? How's your jokes? And then originality is another one that we really look at.
It's a big one.
It is a big one.
I don't review the tapes myself, but I talk to the reviewers, and man, do they get bored.
Oh, yeah.
They watch 50 tapes, usually in one sitting. That's like 4 hours, basically.
That's the lesson that I learned from producing a festival, is not to try to watch videos all in one sitting.
Oh, okay. Well, most of them,
that's the takeaway.
Sometimes they'll break it up into 2 sessions, but the idea is that you might have your tape watched after somebody has watched 15 in a row. Let's say you're the 16th tape. Boy, you better be different in some way. Or it's not that the people aren't going to watch you, but they're going to kind of glaze over and start thinking about their taxes or their grocery shopping or whatever. You got to really you got to punch quickly and be original. And I really, as a comedian, I got about half as much time as you do in the game. I really struggle with that. Every year I do these, we'll get into this later. I do these tape reviews with people, and I watch some tapes, and I submit to festivals myself, and I'm always thinking, I'm watching a tape, I'm like, man, if somebody watches 20 tapes before mine, is mine really going to stand out? And I'm like, how do I, it's something I work on every year. It's like, what kind of jokes can I do? How can I be memorable in a 5-minute tape out of hours and hours of viewing? So I don't know if you have any tips on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my tips for submission videos, I mean, as far as like standing out, start with a joke, like a funny joke.
That's easy.
It's an easy, I wrote a whole article about this, about, things that that are overlooked when you're submitting to a festival. I feel like there's a lot of things people just don't think about. And one of the things, and I always tell people this all the time, your video needs to start right away with you telling a joke, not, you don't want a host bringing you up. You don't want, maybe a host is, because I've seen it all. I've seen where there was a comic, it cuts into a comic killing, and he's doing like a minute and a half, and then all of a sudden he's bringing up the comic, and that's whose video it was. And I'm like, what? Why didn't this guy apply? He's way better. Because then that comic proceeded to not do that well. And it's like, ooh.
Yeah. So I'd say tip number 1 from Dan and Mark is, cut out the fluff in the beginning. Basically start immediately with you talking to a mic, and as quickly as possible, get a strong reaction from the audience. Yeah. Preferably one that the reviewer will also laugh at. Be funny. One thing, very quick.
With that, you got to figure when you're doing a video, you're depending on the festival, but they're looking for 3 to 5 minutes. So that means you only got 3 to 5 minutes to impress them. And if it's on that lower side, you don't want to waste that time. You need every second counts. Go right for it. You should be getting a laugh in that first 15 to 20 seconds.
I think I'll also
30
say,
at the most.
like something I learned, like there's like a bell curve of me as a comedian applying to festivals. And I applied to the most festivals my first year. I had no idea that I had no business applying to these festivals. But I would say, look,
we've all done that, but
yeah, exactly. But I'm trying to say this to people who are going to watch this in a while, who maybe haven't started comedy yet. Like maybe take 1 year off. Like if you don't think you have if you can't string together 5 minutes of just packed jokes, you're like at 4 minutes, but you're like, oh, I'll add some filler. I'll let the host walk me up, and I'll have like a video in the beginning, like a montage. Like maybe wait a year, it's not.
I would say, I know this is your show, but I would say tip number 2.
Yeah.
it would be submit when you're ready. You have to have
there
the
you go.
time.
Same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
submit when you're ready, because you're right. I agree with that. Because another thing I've seen too, where a comic, you got to make sure you have the time for whatever the festival is. If they're doing 10-minute sets, but you only have 5 minutes, you don't want to get into that festival and then come do 5 and fill 5, because I guarantee you your set's going to be horrible, and they're going to be like, "Oh, that was a mistake."
Yeah. Exactly.
Make
Yeah.
sure you're ready.
Make sure you're ready. And here's a good tip on how to know you're ready. If you're not sure you are ready, like, how do you know? There's no way to, you're applying to some festival 1,000 miles away, maybe. Go to the festival. Try to volunteer. Like, festival organizers will happily have you in most cases. If you're like, look, I'm a comic, I'm getting started, I'll move chairs, I'll do whatever. Put me in the game, coach. Say something nice. How can I help? And then go and watch. And, when I was getting started, I did this with Red Clay Comedy Festival in Atlanta, Georgia. And boy, did I realize very quickly, I did not belong there as a comedian. I wasn't ready. Everybody was so funny. I mean, there were people with late night TV credits there. Just very and even people you'd never heard of were hilarious, and watch a lot of the shows at one of these festivals. And then you'll have a better sense of, oh, is this like my weekly open mic, or is this, a bigger deal?
And with that too, that's a good way too. Volunteering, especially if you live in an area where you have a comedy festival, it's a good way to network, meet comics. You get to see comics from across the world. You get to network with them, and it's definitely helpful. I know comics that volunteered at Laugh Out Loveland when we did it last year, and they were like, "Oh, I'm so glad." They told me they were so glad they volunteered, because they met some other comics and they've been able to network with them. And so, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. And you never know, you might end up doing something. Like one year when I volunteered, this happened to me at 3 different festivals that I volunteered at. They were missing somebody or needed to fill a little bit of time before the host got on. And it wasn't really like a hosting set, but I got up on stage in front of hundreds of people and just said, welcome to blah, blah, blah comedy festival. I'm going to bring on your host. And it just, it gave me a little more
handle,
a little practice. And and I was scared to death, I'll be honest. But you gotta fight your way through that stuff.
You do
sometimes, and that's not going to happen if you stay at home and just watch Netflix specials.
And even if you don't volunteer, going back to what you said, go watch a festival, and you'll see that the amount of talent. It's a good way to kind of gauge where you're at.
Yeah. All right, so we got 2 tips. I'm not sure we're gonna track on tip numbers here. Anything else jump to mind? I would say professional quality tape. Seems like a silly thing.
The more professional you can get it. I mean, even with this day and age with technology, phones are pretty good. But I always say, make sure we don't want vertical videos, horizontal.
Okay.
We want good. I always say do a good. If you can, straight shot. Horizontal shot framed from, your waist, just a little bit of above your head. So that way it's a good tight shot. I know a lot of people always want, I got to have that comedy club logo in the back to prove I was at said comedy club. Well, for submission video, we don't care. We want to see you. I don't want to see that headspace.
Yeah. I agree with you that you want high quality video, but I also would say
and tight.
That it's unfair, but there is a bias. If I watch 2 videos and one is clearly filmed at the Comedy Cellar, and it's not a bringer show, somehow I.
But how do you know that's a bringer?
You don't always know.
You don't.
Fair
That's
enough.
just it.
Fair
that's
enough.
why I don't ever gauge by that, because I also know a lot of look at Comedy Works. They do talent night.
Well, Comedy Works, I would say, is poisoned. Like you can get a tape, but to get a 5-minute tape at Comedy Works is kind of challenging.
That one is, but I'm just saying,
once a year, basically,
you can get a good tape out.
But yeah, I would say in general, if you're watching, again, to get back to my analogy of 16 tapes, the ones that are filmed at professional. Here's another thing I'll say about framing: include the audience in the framing, because here's another thing: how do I know you're not the janitor at Laugh Factory and you're in there at 4 a.m. filming this tape? If it's so tight on you and maybe you put in a laugh track or something. Like I want to see people's bodies heaving, you know. So I think that's an important element. But I would say that if you have a choice, 6 to 1, half dozen the other, and you have a tape at a recognizable comedy club, and you have one that looks like it was filmed at an open mic in a bar in West Montana, I would go with the big city comedy club because it's possible the person watching it, they'll just pay more attention from the beginning. I'm not saying you can't win them over with good jokes throughout the duration of the tape, but you'll have an easier road.
Yeah, I would disagree with that a little bit. And that is just, you could perform at a bar show and crush and then perform at the comedy club and not get the same laughs. I think always when you're thinking about submitting, you should always submit whatever your best tape is when you're getting your best reaction from a crowd with your best jokes.
Sure.
I think that trumps wherever it is, always strive for doing your best. But that's just me personally.
Yeah.
I think you got to submit your best material.
Yeah. Your funniest stuff.
Yeah.
What do you do if you have a 7-minute tape, but somebody's asking for 5? Or, you have a 5-minute tape, but somebody wants 10 or what?
Well, so the vice versa of that. So we'll start with you they want 5, you have 7. Okay. A lot of times what you can do, first things first, just email them and ask if it's okay to submit the 7 minutes. They'll probably say yes, but they're only going to watch the first however minutes they promise. Right. So if you have, if they're only looking for 5, they're probably only going to watch the first 5. So if your best material is in that 2 to 7 time frame on that video, you're in trouble because they're only going to see now 3 minutes of your best stuff. Yeah. But personally, I would chop it. That's what I would do. I would take the best 5 minutes out of there. And when I say that, I mean, I still continuous. One thing with submitting videos, festival bookers and even comedy club bookers and entertainment bookers in general, they want a continuous video. They want to see you from start to finish, one continuous set. Doesn't have to mean it's got to be one set. It can be a chunk you could record an hour and take 5 minutes out of there, but we don't want to see a best of tape. We don't want to see it jumping from club to club and a lot of like hard cuts, because that, to me, that's a red flag. That always tells me, oh, they cut a bunch of stuff out. That tells me it wasn't good enough to be in this. Right. They're probably not.
Yeah, it seems
ready.
Sketchy.
Yeah, very sketchy.
Sure. I will say I did get feedback once from one of my tapes that was like that. It was like a half-hour tape and I took 5 minutes out of it. And they said they wanted to see me open and close.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Which kind of made some logical sense to me and I hadn't really thought of before. So something to consider for everybody who's watching.
Yeah. Well, and I would say to add on to that, the first thing you should do before you submit if you're thinking about submitting to a comedy festival, first thing you need to do, go to their website, look at their submission guidelines, read that inside and out, see what they want, see what they're looking for, because a lot of times the things that they want will be in there. Yeah. They'll say that they want a continuous video and they want to see you start, they want to see you finish, they'll tell you everything you need to know for your video to submit.
Right.
Now going to that other side, you only have 5 minutes and they want 10. You're not ready to submit.
Yeah.
So
sure.
that's
or go out and get a 10-minute tape. I mean, if you've been in the game long enough, you probably have a 3, 5, 7, 10, 20, 30, 60 tape. It might not be your favorite tape. Yeah. You've got all that stuff. If a booker hits you, it's just professional. If somebody reaches out and says, hey, we want you to open up for somebody, we need a 25-minute tape. If you can email them back in like 20 minutes with a 25-minute tape that's professional and good, that's great. Like as a booker, I know you got your stuff together. You probably have roadside assistance. You're going to make this gig.
You're going to make it to the gig on time despite.
Exactly. All right. Any other tips? Good sound. How about that?
Yeah, I was going to say, good sound. I always think, and that one's a little trickier for people. If you have the income, I always recommend getting yourself a lapel recorder, like a field recorder. I use a Tascam field recorder, just a little lapel mic. It fits in my pocket. The mic I usually put about mid-level on my chest. And it does a really good job of picking up the audience, so I get their reaction, and picking up my voice, so I'm clear, and it does a good job of mixing it. Because if you can pull from the the box, the soundboard. The only thing that happens with that is if the room isn't mic'd, you're not going to always hear the audience reaction.
Yeah, it's tough.
You're only going to hear
you can combine with what I do is I'll put the phone on the stool for the audience reaction and then get the soundboard, and I'll merge the two.
And that's a way to do it too. I mean, I think if you're going to do comedy and you really, want to take this serious, learning how to edit and sync video and audio is huge.
Something a lot of people do with those small recorders, the lapel recorders, is they'll have two of them.
Yep.
They put the second one in the audience, like physically in the audience. And then they use the one. Sometimes you don't have access to the soundboard. Maybe it's a showcase and it's like turning over and it's just kind of rude to be like, hey, can I plug into the soundboard? You're not the headliner. Sometimes that can be weird. So if you wear one close to your mouth, that can be your soundboard feed. And then the one in the audience can be the audience feed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing I did do too. I've got a wireless lapel mic now, and it has two lapel mics.
Nice.
But it fits. So the receiver goes right into my camera. So I don't have to do like a lot of editing. Like I don't have to sync it. I can wear one on my body when I'm performing, and I can set the other one out in the audience.
That's awesome. What kind of camera do you have? Do you know?
So I just have a Canon. What is it? Like a Canon Vixio.
Okay. Something
80.
You got a nice tripod, a reasonable tripod.
Yeah. The camera that I have, I bought it used for a couple $100.
Okay.
It's decent. It's not like 4K, it's 1080, whatever. And that's the thing with comedy and like submission videos, you don't need 4K. When we're talking about quality, we're not talking about 4K or 1080. It's just got to be a clean, bright shot.
You don't want to be shaky.
Don't want to film it.
I've seen this. You don't want to film it in your car of yourself just talking to the phone.
I've seen that. I've seen that like in somebody's living room.
That's not a great
you don't want your friend to hold it.
Yeah.
And
you hear them laughing and ordering.
You're laughing and you see the phone shaking because they're laughing.
Yes.
That's, to get good video, one of the first things you need to do is get a tripod. For whatever video recording device you are using, get a tripod.
Yep.
And then, I always say when you're trying to get a tape, if you're at a club or a venue, always ask the venue. A lot of times they might have a place where they want you to put it, or they have a place for cameras and stuff. Just ask them, just say, hey, I'd like to record. Is there a place that I can set my camera where it's not going to be in the way or whatever? But, always make sure you're getting that permission and
absolutely.
And that help from them. But definitely use a tripod.
Nice. All right. Any last festival submission tape ideas? Get it in on time. Usually earlier is cheaper. If you can submit it earlier.
Yeah, if you can. I think, like I said, just if you have questions, send the festival, email the festival those questions. And if they don't reply, that's a good indicator that you probably shouldn't submit to.
We should talk about that a little bit. Some festival, not all, like SnoJam, Vail Comedy Festival, very good festivals, if I don't mind saying.
Yeah. I would add Laugh Out Loveland on that too.
Not every festival is a good festival. There is a shady side to festivals. And just, look at the website, do it once over. If you have the luxury of this, talk to somebody who did it the year before. Usually you'll be able to see the lineups. That's something, if I can't see the lineup from a previous year, or at least the last year, that's a red flag for me. Like I want to see that. Yep. I want to be able to look down who's from Denver that did it. Okay, I'm reaching out to them, ask them, was it good? What was good? What was bad? And then, because it's a big financial investment doing these festivals. It's worth it. I think it pays off, but You got to be a little bit selective.
It definitely can, but like you have to be selective on that because you'll end up wasting a lot of money if you don't.
And once you get to the festival, you got to put in the time to make it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hide out in your hotel room the whole time, go sneak out, do 2 5-minute spots, and then disappear. You can, but you're probably not getting your money's worth.
Yeah, because you're losing out on those networking opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's realistically, that's what festivals really are. Like your biggest takeaway that you're going to get from a festival is networking, whether it's with other comics or if that festival has industry or whatever. If you're not there being involved, and a lot of them, the social side of it is what matters. Like they want to put on good shows and have, good time there, but they're looking for people who are, they want people that are going to be a good hang.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when it comes to like booking other comics, it's the same thing. People, it doesn't necessarily matter if you're funny. If you're hiding out in your hotel room and not in being antisocial, people probably aren't going to be trying to book you on their shows and get you to come to their city.
Yeah, absolutely. Is the Loveland thing happening again?
Yeah. Yep.
Pitch it. Give us the pitch.
It's going. Yeah. So Laugh Out Loveland is the first weekend of August 1st through the 4th. You can go, the website's laughoutloveland.com. And submissions for that festival are opening up March 1st.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Amazing. Do they want a 5-minute tape? Do you know?
I think we do 3 to 5.
3 to 5. All right. Awesome.
Yep.
Cool. Vail Comedy Festival, everybody, vailcomedyfestival.com every Memorial Day weekend. Submissions are open now. It's January 2024. They'll be open until Valentine's Day. So you got another 5 weeks, and then you can wait till the next year, and you come volunteer. You can apply to volunteer for free. You got to pay if you want to be a comic, but it's free to apply as a volunteer, and it is a kick-ass time. It's a lot of fun. Dan, you're the best, man. Super fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was good chatting.
Why don't you pitch your pod and tell people how they can find you?
Yeah, well, you can see the logo back here. The Art of Bombing podcast is my podcast where I talk to funny comedians about times when they weren't necessarily so funny. Well, because they bombed, and they tell the stories of when they bombed and kind of what happened, and it's very entertaining because they're reliving the horror, and then we talk about what they learned from it and how they got better because of that experience. So it's a good fun thing. Mark's been on the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't have the episode on the top of my head, but if you look Art of Bombing, Mark Masters, you'll find it.
Okay, cool. And if people want to book you, how do they find you?
danbublitz.com.
Awesome. Bublitz, everybody. We'll be back next Monday. It's Always Bookin Comedy. Good luck with all your festival submissions. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. I'm going to close this out.